Hi, I'm Tim and you're watching me, MrTimTech, on YouTube. Now, in this new video series, what I'm going to be doing is setting up a new home lab with some Alta Labs equipment. So if you're interested in setting up your home lab, or maybe you just want to upgrade your home network or business network to Alta Labs equipment, then this series is for you. We're going to be starting this series in this first episode 1 with this, which is the Alta Labs Route10 10 gigabits per second router, or router, whichever you like to call it, depending on where you're from. And we're also going to be connecting this up, which is the Alta Labs S24-POE Power over Ethernet 24 port network switch. So we'll get started with those in a moment. However, if you're a professional network installer, then Alta Labs are currently offering a deal with a not for resale pack for professional installers only, by the way, and you get this, which is their Route10 10 gigabits per second router. You also get this, which is their S8 PoE 8 port network switch. You also get this, which is their AP6 wireless access point, and finally you also get this, which is their AP6 Pro access point. The current price for all that equipment would be around £618 here in the UK, or $636 US, but you get the professional NFR pack for a price of £438 here in the UK, or $399 US. So if you're a professional network installer and you want one of those packs, then look in the description for this video and there's a link that you can fill in the form to apply for one of those packs. The promo code is MrTimTech. We'll get on to the video series now, get started, take a quick look at the S24-POE and also the Route10 router, and then we'll get them set up and adopted into the Alta Labs cloud controller. So here we are with the Route10, which I've already unboxed, and it features 4 2.5 gigabit PoE ports. 2 of these are PoE plus. Then we have 2 10 gigabit SFP cages here, so they go below 10 gigabit if necessary, and of course these are either for uplinking to switches or for connecting to WANs in a multi-WAN setup. So this will accept multi-WANs. So for example, if you have 2 WANs, one of as a backup, then you can connect both of these to this Route10. Now, before this, we have the reset button here, and then we have the Alta Labs logo. And on the top, we have the Alta Labs logo again, and this actually illuminates up in different colors, and you can actually customize the colors in the cloud controller. At the back, we have the power input, as you'll see here. But just going back to the front, the first one is the default connection for WAN 1, and this is factory default as WAN 1. And then the other one, which is for WAN 2, which is the default one for the second SFP cage here. Total PoE budget is 40 watts, and we have the status LED lights, of course, on each of the ports. So what we'll do is have a quick look at the S24-POE 24 port network switch now. So here we are with the Alta Labs S24, which is their 24 port PoE network switch. And in the box, you get the 2 rack mounting brackets, as this is rack mountable. You get the switch, of course, itself. Again, you get the quick start guide, and you also get in this little plastic box screws for fixing the rack mount ears, and also a set of rack studs. The ports on the front are 24 RJ45 ports. Now these are all rated at 1 gigabit. However, ports 1 through to 16, so in this section here with the 2 sections with 8 ports in each, are PoE plus ports. The last 8 to the right hand side here are non-PoE ports, so they're just standard. So going over to the right hand side, we have 2 10 gigabit SFP plus cages there with the plastic protective dust covers in them, as you will see. And these, of course, are for uplinking into other switches, or for example, in this case, I'm going to uplink one of these SFP ports into the 10 gigabit port on my Route 10. So now that we've taken a look at the Alta Labs Route 10 and also the S24-POE network switch, I'll take you to my network cabinet and I'll show you the home lab setup that I've done to connect the Route 10 to the internet, and also my PC behind me here to the Route 10 as well. And then what we'll do is get the internet connection set up on the Route 10 and also link it through to the PC. As you can see here, we have the S24-POE, which I've powered on. And as you can see, we've got the Alta Labs logo, which is illuminated there. And in the first SFP port, so the one on the left, I've got an LC fiber connection, which is going up into the Route 10. And that's going into the first SFP port on the left side. So that's 10 gigabit uplink connection between the switch and the Route 10. Then on port 1 of the Route 10, so the port at the left hand side, this is going into the WAN connection, so the internet into the 2.5 gig port. And as I've said, all these four are 2.5 gigabit ports, so the RJ45 2.5 gigabit. And then we've got port 2 and 3, which are the PoE plus ports, which are empty at the moment. And then we've got in port 4 the cable which goes down into my patch panel, which is temporary of course, and it goes into the patch panel and then it links up to my PC in another room. So that's how we'll be setting up the Route 10 and the S24 and then linking it into the Alta Labs cloud controller, which if you want to go to that and register, then you just set up an account and then get an email to verify the account. And the web address you need to go to the Alta Labs cloud controller is manage.alta.inc. So that's how the lab is set up at the moment. You'll see there's other devices here, but they're for my main network. So this is the PBX, it's a UCM 6300A from Grandstream. Then we've got a NAS at the top just off camera here, which is a QNAP. And then we've got two GMK Tech mini PCs. One is running Home Assistant and the other one is spare at the moment. However, it does have Ubuntu installed on it. So then below the S24, we've got my Grandstream GCC 6011, which is my main network router or router, whichever you like to call it. And then below that, we've got the Grandstream GWN 7822P, which is their 24 port multi-gigabit network switch. So that's also running on my main network. So what we'll do now is hop onto my PC, get this set up to the internet connection, and then get the devices adopted into the Alta Labs cloud controller. So we'll do that right now. So here we are at my PC and I've opened up a web browser, and what I've done is in the address bar typed in 192.168.1.1, which is the default IP address for the Route 10. So once you've entered the IP address as I've shown here, then select enter. Then you will be presented, or you should be presented, with the Alta Labs, and it's already saying internet is connected. However, as mine is a DHCP IP address allocation, it's already picked that up from my initial main network. So if you're setting this up as a standalone network without going through, say, a lab setup like I am, then you probably won't have internet, so it should say internet disconnected. So to set up the internet connection, I'll take you through the steps. So what we do is go onto the setup internet button, so click this, and then it will take you on to the next screen, as you will see here. So we've got WAN 1, which is port 1 on the diagram, and then WAN 2, which is the last SFP port to the right, and that will be default to WAN 2. So it's asking us which port is your primary internet connection plugged into. So we'll select as WAN 1. Then it's taken us to the next screen and is saying, is your primary internet connection DHCP, automatic, static, or PPPoE? Now in my case it's DHCP, so it's automatic. So in most cases you should be able to select that and it should detect it. However, if you're using a static IP address, then you'll need to go in to the static option and enter a static IP address details. So we'll just click on this and I'll show you. So here you'll enter your static IP address, which has been allocated to you by your internet service provider. They will also provide you with a subnet, so you need to enter that in the subnet box, and then also the gateway IP, which they'll also provide, and of course DNS servers. However, if you want to use your own DNS servers, you can do. For example, Google, which is 8.8.8.8, as shown in this example. Or you can use, say, 1.1.1.1, which is another popular public DNS server. So in my case, as it's not static, we'll just go back, and you can also select PPPoE. So we'll just click on that and I'll show you. And here you'll then have to enter a username and password to connect to your internet service provider. Again, this will be provided to you by your internet service provider. So we'll just go back, and in my case we'll select DHCP, which is auto. Then it's asking us, does your primary internet connection require VLAN tagging? And yes, mine does. However, in this case, as I've said, I'm selecting a lab setup, so it's connected through another network. So in this case, VLAN tagging is not required for me. But if I were connecting it to that directly to my internet, then I would select yes. So if I select yes, you would then have to enter your VLAN tag, again provided by your internet service provider, and also if they use a quality of service, so QoS tag, then you would enter that number in there as well. So I'll just select back, and then in this case I'll select no. But if your internet service provider, of course, doesn't use VLAN tagging, then you would also select no or don't know. So in this case we'll select no, and then it's asking us, does your primary internet connection require use of a specific MAC address? So if your internet service provider has MAC address binding, so what they would do is bind a specific MAC address to your internet connection, then you would have to select yes, and then you would enter the MAC address. However, if you don't need that, then you just select no. So we'll select no, and then it will ask you, do you require a forced Ethernet link speed? In most cases, you should just be able to select no or automatic, and it should negotiate at the specific speed of what your internet service provider's router or gateway, for example, or modem, or the ONT box. So whichever those are rated at, then you could actually select the speed. But in most cases, I would recommend just selecting automatic, and it should just pick up the highest speed of what your connection is connected at to your internet service provider. So we'll just select no, automatic, and now it's connecting to the internet service provider. And as you can see, the internet is now showing as connected. So that means we should have internet access on this PC. So I've just opened up a new tab and typed in, for example, bbc.co.uk, and it's actually loaded the website. So now that we've tested that and it's connected to the internet, we can now close this window. So now what I can do is open up the Alta Labs Cloud Controller at manage.alta.inc. So I'll just do that. And you will now see that we've got the Alta Labs Cloud Controller dashboard. So in a moment or two, the devices should just pick up automatically. So if we select network, as you'll see, we've just waited a few seconds. Our new switch and new router have now appeared for adoption. Now it's saying that the devices might be out of date. So the firmware versions are on 1.3F for the Route10 and 1.2C for the S24-POE. So what we'll do on this is just click on setup on the new router, and then it should adopt it into the cloud controller. And as you can see, the status has now changed to connected. And you'll also see that we've now got a version with a little arrow symbol. So this means that the firmware version needs updating. So what we'll do is just click on the arrow, and then it asks you to update device. When do you want to update it? Right now or tonight? So we'll just update it right now. So we'll click this, and then I'll just wait for a few moments or a few minutes for the Route10 to update itself, and then I'll be back to the video again shortly. And you will now see that the Route10 has actually updated itself to version 1.4F, and this just took a couple of minutes, and you'll now see in the status we've got the data throughput going through. That's fully connected and adopted into the Alta Labs cloud controller. So now that we've done that, we can now set up the switch. So we'll click on setup for the new switch here, and now you'll see it's saying connected, and also there's an update due for that. So what we'll do is update it. So we'll just click on the arrow and then select right now to update the device. And again, I'll be back again in a couple of moments when the switch has been fully adopted and updated. And here we go. The network switch has updated itself. So the S24-POE is now showing as version 2.1U, and we now have under the status data traffic flowing between both devices. So that confirms that they've now been updated and added. However, what we'll also do is now you'll see under the IP addresses, now these are 192.168.1 range. Now, unfortunately, I'm already using a network in the 1 range. So what we're going to do is change it. So to do this, what you need to do, now you don't have to do this, but if you're using or you prefer different IP address ranges, then you can actually change the network range. So to do this, what you need to do is click on settings at the top, then go into networks, and then you will see we've got the VLAN 1, which is default, and then we've got the IP range. So what we need to do is click on the VLAN number, and then you'll get the pop-up window, as you'll see. Now you can actually move these pop-up windows about, as you'll see. Just drag and drop them, and then what we're going to do is in the router IP we're going to change this to 192.168.0.1, and then in the number of reserved IP addresses we'll leave that as 10, and then in the pool size we'll also leave that as 243. So then for the DNS servers, what we'll do is leave that as blank, as we're using the Alta router or Alta router as the DNS servers. So the Alta Labs Route10 is acting as the DNS server. So we'll leave that as it is. And then all we need to do is go down to the bottom, as you will see, and click on save. Now you will see in the summary here, we've got the new IP address range of 192.168.0.1/24 as the new network IP range. So what we'll do is go back to network at the top, and as you can see it's now changed the IP address for the Route10. So what we need to do for the switch, it should actually change itself, but what we'll do is just reboot the switch, just power it down by disconnecting it from the mains power, and then powering it back up by plugging it back in again, and then it just picked up a new IP address. As you can see, it's now picked up 192.168.0.11. So now we have the Alta Labs network, and any other devices and the current devices are now in the 192.168.0 IP range. So what we'll do just before I end this video is we'll just name our devices. So to do this, you'll see we've got no name against each one. So what we'll do is click on the name, and then we'll call this S24-POE and click enter. Then in the other one with no name, what we'll do is click that, and then we'll call it Route10, and there we go. We've now got our devices named on the network so that we know which device is which in future. So that will do it for this video, and what we'll do in part 2 is we'll go more in depth into the Alta Labs cloud controller, and of course we'll also be adding more devices as they are released from Alta Labs. So thanks for watching this video. Hope you're liking this new series, and I'll be back again soon with more videos. Bye for now.